Forum, proudly brought to you by these sponsors.
The Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Aden Mohamed, distinguished panelists, partners, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am gratified to welcome you to this edition of the Thought Leadership Forum on Manufacturing. Manufacturing has been identified as one of the big 4 pillars for catalyzing growth in the country. This forum, therefore, provides us with a rare and early chance to provide essential inputs for the policy formulation, to interrogate, and to set the parameters for holding our leaders to account. These essentially are the heart and soul of NLF. With these few remarks, I wish you a very informative town hall debate. It's now my honor and pleasure to invite my brother Stephen Kitagama, SG, to say something. Thank you.
Professor Henry Mutoro, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, University of Nairobi. Honorable Aden Mohamed, EGH Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives. Honorable Simon Chelugoi, Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Water and Sanitation. Dr. Wilfred Kiboro, Chairman, Nation Media Group. Panelists, Phyllis Wakiaga, CEO, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Ahmed Randi, GM, Coca-Cola, East and Central Africa. Professor Bitange Ndemo, University of Nairobi. Rakesh Rao, CEO, Crown Paints. Wanjiro Waidaka, CEO, Fun Kids. Our sponsors, University of Nairobi, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO, Ministry of Energy, Crown Paints, Coca-Cola, Tata Chemicals, KCB Bank, Mabati Rolling, and Homeboys. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my great honor and high privilege to welcome you all to the 4th edition of the Nation Leadership Forum. This high-profile, high-impact quarterly forum was launched in 2017 to provide a platform to provoke, discourse, encourage dialogue, shape opinions and policy directions, and practical solutions to key issues critical to the development and the growth of Kenya. The event is accorded 360 degrees publicity across all NMG platforms in print, broadcasting, and digital. Very few developed countries in the world can speak of their economic development and sustained growth without crediting it to the industrialization through the creation of a strong manufacturing base. It is for this reason that we have dedicated this edition to manufacturing, which is one of the 4 big agenda priorities for the government. Manufacturing sector contributes only 8% of the country's GDP against a target of 15%. Therefore, it is important that we discuss the challenges faced in this sector and come up with solutions that will help us achieve the newly industrialized country status in the year 2030. The forum will address a number of issues. First is the industry's competitiveness, how to bring down the cost of infrastructure and energy and support SMEs and manufacturing incubation, market access, combating illicit trade such as anti-counterfeit efforts and use of trade blocks for market expansion. 3, sustainability, green manufacturing initiatives and environmental conservation. On behalf of the Nation Media Group, I wish to thank all the diverse stakeholders, the government, captains of industry, diplomatic community, industry expert, development partners, academia, the affected persons, corporates and viewers at home for taking time to participate in this forum and share their knowledge with us today. I'm confident that we'll all benefit from the discussion. Thank you and God bless you.
And thank you very much to our acting CEO, Stephen Gitagama, and the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Academic Affairs, that's Henry Mutoro, for their remarks. Just to take it up from there, just to give you a bit of context, back in the year 1960, Kenya was comparable to South Korea in matters to do, of course, in terms of GDP growth rate, looking at the opportunities for investment. Looking at over 50 years on, you're looking at kind of a different tale to it. At this moment, you're looking at South Korea, of course, fully industrialized and looking at the opportunity that's created in terms of providing jobs, in terms of providing livelihoods and economic growth in the Asian country. On this other end, we have Rwanda, countries that are giving, of course, you can say Kenya, a bit of sleepless nights, and looking at also Ethiopia, which is a country that Kenya has actually lost investments to. All this is in matters to do with industry. How can we create a competitive manufacturing sector, give an opportunity of job creation to a youth in the country today? Those are some of the key aspects we'll be looking towards delving deeper to. As my friend says, we don't intend to boil the ocean. We just want to kind of go right into it, of course, in the interest of time and making sure that we can have the industry experts who are right here. We have government representatives. We also have students in the house and the common Wananchi. So ladies and gentlemen, please give yourselves a round of applause for creating time to be here. To our viewers, remember you can follow these discussions online via social media platforms, also live on the Nation FM and also live on our social media platforms. The hashtag is NMG, that's Leadership Forum. Of course, do tweet and we'll be sure to sample your tweets as we move along. All right, so let's get right into it. I'm going to introduce the panelists, and our first two speakers did the honors of doing it. But just so that we can understand and just give a sense of who's sitting on my left to the right, allow me to just do a quick introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me introduce Ahmed Radi, who's the General Manager of Coca-Cola East and Central Africa. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, next to Ahmed is Phyllis Osoro-Wakiaga, who's the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Thank you for being here. Next to Madam Phyllis is Waziri Honorable Aiden Mohammed, who's the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Competitiveness. Next to Waziri, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome and introduce Rakesh Rao, who's the CEO of Crown Trades Kenya. Thank you very much. After Rakesh, allow me to introduce and welcome Wanjiru Waweru Waithaka, of course, as the former First Lady will call her Shiro, who's the CEO of Fun Kids Africa. Thank you for being here. Last but not least, I should say our hosts for today, of course, that's Professor Bitange Nemo, who's the Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship right here at the University of Nairobi. Let's just move straight to Waziri. First of all, congratulations on being reappointed back to your docket. Maybe he deserves a crown at this point in time. So, did it come as a surprise? You're looking at a sports manufacturing spurt out in Vision 2030. You're having a target of 15% contribution to GDP by the year 2022. Again, after Vision 2030, it was named as the Big Four. What did it first of all come as a surprise, and in your docket, how are you seeing this sector scaling up and in achieving this target by 2022?
Well, thank you very much. And one of the things I observed this evening, by the way, is how hard it is to do a live show. So the manufacturers should be very proud of what they produce. We think it's very easy to be doing a live show. But anyway, first of all, I'm really delighted to be here, and my being here today plays, two roles. One is I'm really keen to hear from Kenyans, both in the audience as well as outside, just to understand what is on their mind on matters manufacturing and industry, to understand some of the issues that might be on our blind spot. But in terms of the sector contribution today, manufacturing does just over $7 billion US. It has been growing, except that the other sectors like services and others have been growing much faster. That is something that we should be proud of. Manufacturing is important for a whole raft of reasons, whether it's job creation, whether it is, contribution along the value chain. There are a lot of things. Many people see a company making beer, just doing beer, but down the chain, there are millions of other people who are benefiting from that. So the fact that it has been put at the top of the nation's agenda says a lot about what it can do if we get all the necessary ingredients right. So I think it's important that we have it right at the top. We'll be very keen to see how we can build it together as a country and as fellow Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziri. And Phyllis, hearing Aidan speak is really looking at how we can actually build it from the base that it is. If you look at the economic statistics for 2017, of course, just reflecting on 2016 results, is that we had kind of a flat growth in manufacturing. First of all, why was that the case? And there's a word that we'll keep on hearing tonight, which is competitiveness.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I'm happiest about, thank you for everyone in the room, we've been speaking about elevating the tenor of discourse on manufacturing and making manufacturing everyone's business. And I'm happy to see today that manufacturing is everyone's business. And we can't underscore the importance of the sector. I think a strong domestic manufacturing sector is critical for a strong economy. And we are seeing that even in countries that are first world countries, that are superpowers like America. It's important for them to have a strong manufacturing sector, and they're even trying to attract investors into the country. But you're right that the sector's contribution to GDP has been roughly around 10% over a number of years, and that's the case in sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at the growth of sub-Saharan African GDP, economies are growing at about 5.5%, but the contribution of manufacturing sector is still stagnating at 10% if you look at the average for the sub-Saharan region. So for us, it's a concern because we know that the sector is important. One of the key things that we don't take seriously is the social importance of the manufacturing sector. The sector actually has the ability to reduce social inequality, to deal with issues of inclusion and elevate poverty. And if you look at the issues like the inclusion of the country, over the last 5 years, the Human Development Index has shown that inclusion has reduced in the country by about 15%. And that's probably because of the issues of jobs, and the manufacturing sector is really at the center of job creation. So if we see that sector grow, I do appreciate that the services sector is important, but a strong manufacturing sector has the ability to increase the economy's growth even much more because of the strong linkages, the capital accumulation, the productivity and the jobs in the sector. So I believe that as we grow the services sector, it's important to grow a strong manufacturing sector because it has the ability to elevate poverty and really create an inclusive society. So I hope that we can achieve the Vision 2030 and more than anything, the Big Four agenda to see the sector contribute to 15% of the GDP by the year 2022. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ahmed, listening to Phyllis and speaking about job creation, part of our key targets is to have about 300 jobs created, looking at it by the year 2022, of course, mentioning it as a CAB target. Just give us an industry perspective in terms of, what's the scalability, what's the opportunity for manufacturing actually to be a job creation base?
First of all, thank you. I'm honored to be here in this great institution, and I'm proud to be part of this debate today and discussion. As Phyllis said, some of the key studies we have show a direct correlation between value-added manufacturing and the wealth of a country and the reduction of inequality. So by the same token, we believe that we have to drive the manufacturing sector in each of the countries where we operate in. I can give you an example about my industry, where we employ today 10,000 people across our system, but the impact that we have on society is almost touching 1 million livelihoods. And that's because when you look at the backward integration of our industry and the sourcing of local material from here, where most of our packaging material are from here, some of our juices, some of our key ingredients are from the country. So you multiply that effect of that industry of beverage up to all the way up to agriculture. The second point is that Kenya is situated in a strategic location. And last year, we led a campaign about why the future in Kenya, with private and public sector combined, showing that this is the right time to invest in Kenya because it gives you access not only to the East Africa community, but actually to whole Sub-Saharan Africa.
Great. I'm happy that you mentioned on the regional aspect, because one will mention to grow the manufacturing sector, you cannot assume, of course, the base of the East African community and AGOA. And I mean, I'm going to come back to you because actually you are also chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We want to know how, of course, AGOA plays out. But allow me to just cross over to Professor Bitange Ndemo. This issues of jobs, and we were right on this stage even just the other day during the Nairobi Innovation Forum, just looking at the ideas, the opportunities that students who are also represented in the room can actually contribute to this sector. But again, the question has been, are we kind of creating the right skill set to actually assist this sector to grow?
Thanks for allowing me to come here. Welcome home. Yes. Yes and no. There isn't, at this time, when we are looking at the fourth industrial revolution, Africa missing the first and second and third. Now we have into the fourth. We are beginning into the fourth. This is a period that there is no one right skills that you could have, because things would change so fast as we move into digital transformation, which is the key to driving the fourth industrial revolution. I say this because those who did computer science 3 years ago would come back and find things have changed. We are talking about new technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and other things. So what I'm trying to say here, we must begin to think about lifelong learning. That even though you are qualified, you must be thinking about changing and getting into a new state. That's why I said yes and no. We could begin to, especially in the area of skills that we have, then we can now begin to scale. China took the furniture from Italy. We must take this from China to Africa, because China is moving up the ladder. Mm-hmm. So I say we must begin to leverage on the new skills, making sure that the fourth industrial revolution requires that we all understand this thing called digital transformation.
Thank you, Prof. Shiro, yes, indeed, you're in the furniture space. As a small-scale manufacturer, aside from this big industrial, experts we have in the room, of course, we mentioned Crown Prince and Coca-Cola, you in your own unique way also contributing to this sector. Tell us how you're doing that, and how the opportunity that of scalability that the SME sector has.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's an amazing opportunity to be here as an SME. It's insane, the potential. On the furniture sector, like Prof has talked about, it's actually really simple. We need the for example, and I'll speak as an SME here. We hear about robots in factories. Really, these are just your CNC routers. They're possible to have. We have one. If we have one as an SME, imagine if 100 more SMEs like us had CNC routers. And that's why we're able to design, My background, I'm an interior architect who then went and studied carpentry in Eastlands. And I realized studying carpentry in Eastland is not the future. Why? Because it's too manual. So what did we do? We researched and found technology in Germany. It's all about precision. And we brought the technology here as SMEs. So it is possible. I'm looking around at all of you amazingly well-dressed people. It's a pity none of your ties are made in Kenya. It's a pity none of your buttons for your shirts are made in Kenya. So if you're talking about the possibility for scale, right from the garments you're wearing, it's possible.
And the idea of made in Kenya, made in East Africa, I want to take it up on a regional perspective because there's a market to it. And Rakesh, looking at your recent numbers, you reported that things are not quite easy in your doing business, especially in the region. And I'm looking at the opportunity of Crown Prince. Take, for instance, that as an example, that, it's been quite difficult, doing business in the East African community. Paint for us a picture.
Good evening, everyone, and pleasant to be here. You're right, and it's very difficult to do business in East Africa, and I'm just sharing with Honorable that doing business in Kenya is much better than doing business in East Africa. I think the regional integrations, which probably what we've been extending our arms to our neighboring countries, I think that similar support we are not getting. Particularly we talk about Tanzania, we have a tough time, and we keep on investing in those countries so that one day we'll able to come up and could able to do better. But what happened that the receiving hands is not honoring us. They don't care for us. And the reason that the governance of this country is so poor that it's very difficult for us to do our numbers there. So we believe in hopes. We think that things will get better and better, and those hopes are keeping us alive on those markets. And we are committed that we will fight against all problems and will win the market. So yes, things are difficult, but last year what we were talking about where 2017 was a tough year for everyone. We're still able to go on by 7% because of regional integration. So I mean, it's a both. Sometimes it's difficult, but also looking to our market shares where we have more than 60% market share, we need to look for more market shares in regional markets.
Great. Rakesh, thank you very much for that. A round of applause, please, for that first speech. We're going to take a commercial break right now. When we come back, I think my question will be posed to Waziri in the sense of, as Shiro mentioned, we don't quite all seem that we're dressed. Who was a Kenyan tie? Who was a tie made in Kenya? Anyone in the room? Let's see. Who was a tie made in Kenya? Who was a shirt made in Kenya? Oh, great. Okay, so it's only Phyllis. Oh, you have a shirt made in Kenya. You can. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about, of course, made in Kenya, or buy Kenya, build Kenya, buy East Africa, build East Africa. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Coming to you live from the University of Nairobi. If you're just joining us right now, we began with an overview of the manufacturing sector, where we are at right now, looking at the numbers, and of course, it being spelled out as a Big Four priority plan. By the actual mention, actually, among industry players, to them, they actually feel manufacturing is number one amongst the four. Well, we wait to see how that is all about. Spoke about jobs, and now we're looking at market access. And just a key element to look towards, and this was kind of brought out by Shiro, is, looking around the room, I counted two. Only two of our audiences tonight are actually wearing, textiles, let's say clothing that are made locally. So there's that idea about promoting our own and just looking towards, the Made in Kenya initiative plan. Waziri, I just want you to weigh in on this. It doesn't quite seem as a social initiative to actually promote local industries in growing our own.
Well, you earlier on referred to the fact that many years back we were at the same pace as Korea and many other countries, and what has happened. Just briefly on that, basically, we suffered immensely in the last 50 years from severe underinvestment in infrastructure that is required to drive industries, as well as a number of policies that at best were the same throughout the year, but at worst were totally inconsistent and actually killing a number of industries. We were also a very closed society where we had a lot of controls and within our borders we could do anything, and that was the time when people were using and wearing things that were made in Kenya, and a significantly strong cotton and textile sector, for example, many years back. But with the opening up of the world through WTO and markets becoming accessible, then those that have not invested and gotten ready tended to suffer the consequence of some of those mistakes that they have made. And so by opening up, we say, well, we allow anybody to import things in this country as long as they pay the necessary duties. And those duties, in some cases, may not be paid, but to a great degree, a lot of them pay the necessary duties. Even with those duties paid, we tend, in a number of sectors, to be uncompetitive. So many of the people here that you see here, for example, import or buy imported products, where even after paying the duties, we tend to be much more expensive. So a key part of what we've been working on in the last 4 years has been how to reverse some of those challenges that has made us to be much more uncompetitive. And so the scale benefit that most of these countries have had, like China and many Southeast Asian countries, have made the volume of production such that the unit cost is much cheaper. So we suffer from that. And why is the unit cost lower and the volumes high? It's because of the market access people have had. So many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, including ourselves, have only in the last 10 years been able to expand our market outside of our 40 million population, now to reach out to Europe, to the US, and and Asia in some cases. Those are the kind of things that we need: market access to attract investors that can produce in big quantities, such that the unit cost actually can come much lower, and we can become competitive and be able to compete with others. So the choice we have in making sure that we can get things that are made in Kenya is to be much more, harder and levy duties that are, out of sync with the rest of the world. But we are getting there. I think the attraction of international investors, as well as supporting our domestic investors to expand, is making us to get there. And there are many places where we have living examples. I see Ms. Kimani here, for example, who is producing pick and peel. Many years back, you are getting those products from South Africa. I think you'll be lucky to see some of those products in South Africa today on our shelves, and many others. Pineapples is one of the key exports from Kenya. We have been able to demonstrate global expertise. Floriculture and other places, we have gotten to a world scale. We want to be able to do that for some of the other sectors. And the key word, I think, is get the scale and create the competitiveness that we require.
Thank you, Ed. And I'm going to come to Dominic McVeigh, who's from the player is actually in the textile space. And I'm told, just from right in Kenya, he actually ships. So that's on row 3. We're going to be coming up to you. Phyllis, listening to Waziri speak about that kind of creating that opportunity for local industry, what comes to your mind?
Two things come to my mind. First of all, I agree with Waziri that one of the main challenges that affects the buy local policy, because it's both about buying Kenya and buying East Africa, because we're really looking at regional uptake of goods and services. So one of the things that affects that is competitiveness. Competitiveness is basically the cost of production sometimes to produce locally is much higher than it is even for an imported product duty paid to land into the market. And that's been a big constraint for the growth of local industries and uptake of these products that are made locally. The other challenge around competitiveness sometimes is the unpredictability of policies, the flow of money within the economy. I think we've been having challenges about payments to the sector, and all this at the end of the day increase the cost of production and the competitiveness of the sector and have an impact on how competitive they can be for local people to take up the goods and services. Another thing is the mindset. You asked the question, how many people are wearing something local? I think a lot of the times we don't connect the fact that supporting local industries and domestic production actually has a positive impact on job creation in our countries. Some of us have jobs because of local industry. So I think that mindset change of seeing the importance of supporting local industry and having pride in local industry is critical. The other thing that the CS spoke about is scaling up. For the sector to be able to scale up, it's important to get big contracts to be able to supply and become competitive. One of the ways to do it is through government procurement. So for the manufacturing sector, the opportunities to supply to government are critical to scale up the sector. So the issues of the preference and reservations regulations being followed is critical. But if you look at the big four also, there are three critical sectors: healthcare, food security, and housing. Those are sectors that can really help to scale up the manufacturing sector. If we simply say that to do these things and to grow those sectors, we are going to do it from locally made products. So I think as we drive the Big Four agenda, we need to take this as an opportunity to really give the advantage to the local industry so that we can scale up production within local industry. And last but not least, the culture of corruption and rent seeking does affect Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, because in some cases, imported products are preferred because of certain reasons. So I think if we look at the culture of rent seeking, corruption, and some of those cultures within the society, we're also able to deal with the issue of increasing local content. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. Indeed, you've actually brought in key issues that actually come up, especially in looking at competitiveness, spoken about market access. I'm just going to allow me to just quickly jump to the CEO of KETRACO, because when you talk about competitiveness, you're looking at energy. This is looking at the cost of electricity. You were quoted once saying that KETRACO is looking towards investing in 400 kilovolt lines just to boost the quality, because yes, there is energy, but you're looking at quality, affordable, and reliable energy. How's KETRACO coming in and, of course, assisting manufacturers get quality power?
Thank you very much for that question. In terms of reliability of electricity, it's important to assure manufacturers that we are looking at quality, reliable, and stable power. Now, what KETRACO is doing is to invest in high voltage lines. We have 400 kV transmission lines. Last year, we energized Mombasa-Nairobi, which is a 400 kV line, is 485 kilometers. We have also invested almost $2 billion in another 400 kV lines to transmit power from Olkaria to the western region. And that is what we are doing, basically to make sure that we address the quality, reliability, and stable power. For you to encourage the big manufacturers, I know cement factories right now, after energizing Mombasa-Nairobi, it's a different story. We also want to make sure that power is stable so that the steel manufacturers can have a reason to come and invest in Kenya. So we believe energy is a very key enabler of our economy. And also for manufacturing, we need stable power, which is quality. So that's what we are doing. And we are focused to deliver in the next 2 years quality power for Nairobians and the entire country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rakesh, listening to, of course, our CEO speaking regarding power distribution, the quality of it, this 50% cut in time of use tariff, of course, just giving you a waiver in terms of your bill at the end of the month. How is it panning out at Crown Prince, and especially, of course, you're representing the manufacturers who are actually applying this? Is this felt on the ground?
I think power, we are not consuming a lot of powers, and we have our own generators most of the time to use our systems. So since we are not very intense, power intense, industry, so far I think I can say that we never have much problems compared to other countries. And if you say Uganda, Tanzania, we spend a lot of money on generator and running the machines and operating machines, but luckily, Kenya has been doing great. I think I work for power sectors in India, and I can say that Kenya did well in managing the systems, and maybe the cost is the issue that's everyone cry about. But so far, the distribution systems and management of Kenya Power, I think I appreciate.
Great, and I would really want to make sure we get full industry perspective. So had it from you, Rakesh, and I also want to hear also from the Mabati Rolling Mills, representing the CEO, we have Ashik Shah. Ashik, how is it for you when you're looking at the cost of power, cost of energy, and this whole aspect about being competitive? Rakesh is right here on row 3. We could just maybe get the mic to you. Just give you a perspective. What we have so far is that we had this cost moved from 18 US cents to 14 US cents. Are you feeling it on the ground?
The power cost is still too high, If you compare yourself with any other international manufacturer of repute, our power cost is too high. It is more reliable than a lot of other countries. And to answer your other question on night shift, if you were already working on night shift, you don't really have the benefit. And I think the benefit should be equal whether you were working night shift or not. So I think the people who are already in night shift should also have the benefit. So I think we need to work on the power cost. It's one of the areas where we need to address competitiveness on power cost, basically.
Great. And looking at how that, of course, will be contributing to it. I'm not sure we're going to get the mic to Wanjoy Kangangi, who's the general manager of Isuzu. But Waziri, because you actually rightfully mentioned you want to hear from the manufacturers and really understand what is the pain point. The 50% time of use tariff doesn't quite seem to work because, again, you have to employ another sort of a batch of a labor force late into the night to actually walking through. And you're looking at the reliability scale. From your side, what are you getting from all this?
Well, I think there are some infrastructure costs like power, which, as I mentioned earlier on, are things we have not done very well in terms of investments over a long period of time. It's only in the last 4 or 5 years that the government has really put a very strong foot forward in encouraging private sector investors to increase the supply and hopefully to get the price down as well. Most of the power, supply that we have today are long-term contracts which have been entered into for a very long time. But a number of really the expensive bits that are, fossil fuel generated have now been retired, if you like. And the more we shift towards solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, we will see with the mix changing, the price also coming down gradually. But as I think industrial is mentioning, it is still too high for their comfort, especially those that are in heavy industries. One thing, though, that is really encouraging for us as a country, which we should be very proud of, is we are one of the very few countries in the world that have already hit their SDG goals in terms of clean energy. More than 80% of our energy supply today in Kenya is clean and renewable. That is something that many people will aspire to get. But I think for manufacturers, we're getting there, and we're working with our colleagues in energy to make sure we can get there quick, sooner rather than later.
All right, let me not put you on the spot. If Engineer Joseph Njoroge is in the house, I'm not sure where you are, because we need to get a mic to you, because I don't want Waziri to take on the pressure from the manufacturers first. But before we get to listen to the Minister of Energy, allow me to welcome General Manager of Isuzu, that's Wanjoy Kangangi.
Thank you very much. So mine is just a brief question to the Minister, because the Minister mentioned that one of the things you need to get competitive is scale. At Isuzu East Africa and amongst assemblers in Kenya, we've got the capacity to do about 30,000 units in a year. We're doing about 20 to 40% of that every year. And on the scale issue, we see a lot of big projects like roads, dams being constructed in Kenya. And we see those as an opportunity for manufacturers to contribute. But a lot of times in the contracts, clauses are inserted that most of the equipment for towards those contracts must come from the funding country. And sometimes it's not even an issue of competitiveness, Bwana Waziri. It's just that the funding country want a market for their equipment. So I think Kenya, we need to be a bit stronger on what we allow to come in for these projects, because at the end of the day, they'll be paid for by Kenyans, and I think it's really important that we put a control on that. The second point I would like... The second point I would like to just quickly make to Waziri is the issue of, a lot of times we look at foreign investors coming in here, and we put in a raft of measures to attract them, to incentivize them. But we forget the local guys that are here, that have been here for 40, 50 years. When they invest more, it's more valuable than the new guy, because the new guy hardly knows the market. He's probably just coming to take advantage of the incentives that go away. So I think we need to make sure that as we put in these incentives, none of them disadvantage the local guy when he similarly invests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wanjoy. Well put. Just hold on, sir, before you actually respond. I haven't forgotten about you, my colleague panelists. Quickly, let's hear from Judith Sidi, who's head of corporate affairs at KCB. Listening to panelists, they say actually access to capital is actually one of the key issues. There's not quite liquidity, especially in the manufacturing space. Just this evening, we've had the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. They actually said that credit to the manufacturing sector has reduced. What do you have to say about this as a banker?
What I'd like to say is that for last year, we had a very challenging period. That's actually for the last 18 years. I know it has affected the manufacturing sector. But again, we are looking at it going forward because we know that in terms of lending for the manufacturing sector over the years, the bank has been contributing about 15% of our loan portfolio towards the manufacturing sector because of the importance that it has into the economy. So as we look forward into the year, we are hoping also with the review of the rate cap and all the other factors, then we should be able to start lending more towards that sector.
All right, great. I'd want Shiro to respond on to the question on access to capital. Waziri, if you could just quickly respond to the question by Wanjohi on looking towards the policy environment in Kenya.
First of all, it is true that when some projects are funded by donors or through external loans, part of the conditions are sometimes less than satisfactory to what we would expect. Whether you are talking about the healthcare sector, where pharmaceuticals are manufactured, or vehicles that you talk about, those are issues that we are aware of and are working very closely with our colleagues in Treasury to actually deal with. So another example is some of these donor projects also don't pay VAT, for example, when the locals companies do pay VAT. And then you end up getting products coming into a country in a much bigger quantity than they actually were to be for even the projects, in which case it undermines some of our local competitors. So the point is well noted, is something that is on the radar to be dealt with by different stakeholders in government. But sometimes when you are asking for a loan, you can't guarantee you will win every time. The issue of the incentives for foreign investors, there is no incentives that is unique for foreign investors. Incentives that we have in this country are for investors, whether you are domestic or indeed foreign. It is true, we tend to hear maybe talk a lot about foreign investors. That is a way in which we are trying to attract capital into a country. Domestic capital is there, it's needed, you're doing extremely well, and I'm very happy to see, industrialists like Vimal, Madam Kimani that I talked about, and so many others who are here. It is not in any way to say you are a foreigner, you qualify for this and the local doesn't. So that is something I just want us to be clear about. Thank you.
Thank you, Aiden. Shiro, listening to Judith Sidi from, of course, KCB, was it easy? Of course, from the loan portfolio is 15% advance to the manufacturing sector. For you, was it easy to come by this issue of credit?
The reality, it's not. Because we're seeing SME, Juakali, you're not serious. It's about cash flow as well when you go to the bank to borrow. And it's very difficult to explain to them on every given day you didn't have power and you have to use diesel. Every morning I wake up to SMS, Mama, Madam, hakuna stima tena. So, number one, your numbers are not even making sense. Because how do you explain, you have all these projections, but on a given day, there's no power, you're spending money on diesel. Your customers, of course, are going nuts because literally you're delaying their products. So when you go to the bank, we wish that they could come and understand the challenges we have manufacturing as SMEs. I'm happy to see Mombasa, Nairobi, but it's not just about the big companies. We need to grow as SMEs as well. The last 1 month, I have blown a lot of fuses in my machines because of extremely unreliable power. Try explain that to the bank as to why you're not able to make your repayments monthly. They don't really care, right? So maybe they should have a buffer loan for us called buffer loan for sometimes kuna haribika literally.
So if the banks lock you out, what are your options? If not the
They
banks?
just, if I honestly believed if they call themselves the RMs and the CEOs could leave their fancy air-conditioned offices and come to the ground and understand that, first of all, we don't even have a road. It's God's mercy.
By the way, Shiro's husband is a banker, just for the record.
Yeah, Eden.
Wow, at least we got
they need to leave their offices.
No, let him speak for himself. Shiro, is he here?
Of course, he's not here. He's with the kids. But if they could come and understand that we love this country, we don't want to default. But honestly, there are times you're just like, I can't do this. So please come and see us and understand. In fact, you need to intern with us for 1 week. Please, job shadow us.
Understand the customer and ensure that you actually know what actually is going on to it. Ahmed Reddy, I want to come to you because Phyllis mentioned on the unpredictable policy environment. You've had to deal with that. Of course, a lot of it said. You just the other day, there was an issue, especially about Coca-Cola being in the courts and just looking, you got reprieved because there's going to be taxation on your products. Just talk to us about the unpredictability of the policy environment.
First of all, what's important to understand is that it's very important for industries to work in a stable environment. We, as much as possible, try to make sure that the government understand our business because they're one of the biggest shareholders in our business, right? With what we pay in taxation. And therefore, understanding how our business grows, what's our business model, what would make it work, and actually what would make it not work, is very important. Again, we are operating in over 206 countries. We understand the government need to raise taxes, and we respect that, and we actually, we want to be always contributor to those tax payings in a very efficient way. Let us work with you on how do you want to do that, or what's the best way to do that, and I'm sure we can get practice for our kind of industry from all over the world that would be the best and shortest possible way to do that.
Great. It has been described as unpredictable, of course, erratic, unproductive, and you as businesses need 3 to 4, 5 years to plan. Let me come to Professor Bitange Ndemo in terms of just looking at how to develop policies that are actually conducive to the industry in having a 360 perspective so that government is not sitting one day and saying, today we're banning out the plastic bags, and of course this is then depending on the plastic bottles. What in your view is good advice in terms of just coming up with a proper and sound policy in this sector?
First of all, I'm not in government.
Just so we're clear.
But I can only talk about my experience in policy making. There are provisions that any policy that you make, you should have public participation. It's very key. That you bring them, explain them, this is the process that we are trying to create, and then you move forward. I think you've been seeing a number of policies where they have been debating on this, but I'm also happy that we are discussing here today this. What we are not focusing is this fourth industrial revolution, and I want to take a minute to link it to what I said earlier. When you hear Isuzu, they are here, they can tell you that most of their parts are manufactured through 3D printing. If today the minister from here says we are going to work with various maker spaces, including Fun Kits, that we invest in manufacturing parts for vehicles through 3D printing, and we stop importation of this by making a deal with them that this will be manufactured locally. It will lead into hundreds of thousands of jobs by taking advantage of this technology. I think we must link technology to manufacturing. That's how we are going to succeed. Micro productions, I may not get time. We need to look into that and also prepare people towards that direction. And that's how we can give holistic policy making in this country.
Great. Yes, Prof, you're not in government, but I'm sure we have very different representation from government officials who are right here. Could we take this as a challenge into how we can actually have even this forum be an opportunity for us to have public participation in policy making? Is that all in favor say aye? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking a commercial break. We'll be coming right back, talking towards this issue about fourth industrial revolution and how we can actually, as Prof says, look towards combining technology and manufacturing. Stay tuned.
Nation Leadership Forum, proudly brought to you by these sponsors.
Greetings and welcome back to the Nation Leadership Forum. My name is Laban Cliff. The discussion continues. And now, I want to hear from an industrialist. His name is all too familiar in this space, Vimal Shah. Over to you. What are the teething problems in manufacturing?
Thank you. I think when we look at manufacturing, is exactly what CS Eden said. The value addition and the whole value chain would be massive. I think Kenya stands to benefit a lot with this thrust in manufacturing. We've got the full value chain. If you take agri-processing from end to end, rather than export raw materials, as leather or even coffee as coffee or tea as tea, we should be exporting it as finished products. And there's so much more possibility because the number of jobs we can create is massive. Why can't we be producing for the world? Why are we only producing for Kenya? Why can't we be producing for... I don't know how many of you know, if you buy Calvin Klein, you know Calvin Klein? You're buying Speedo, those sports. My friend next to me makes them here in Kenya and exports them, made in Kenya. Right? So you're buying Calvin Klein. I'm just saying there's a lot that we don't know that is possible here. We can actually be producing all the shoes that everybody's wearing here, world-class Italian shoes in Kenya. Why not? We've got the leather for it. We're exporting all our leather just for that. So the potential is massive. And I think now it's time for us to be playing business unusual. And this is something that where the minister needs to really come out and say, we're going to change the dynamics of how things happen, not the way we've been doing it in the past. Unless we do that, we're just going to be in the same old rut. And I think, first and foremost, the Big Four, amazing. The announcement, amazing. And I think that's the big thrust from the president coming down. I think the ministries need to remove the silo mentality of working as silos in each ministry. I think we need to make it a mission approach to say the Big Four manufacturing, let's go. Whether it's Ministry of Environment, whether it's Ministry of Water, everybody put together and say the mission is improve manufacturing output. And really manufacturing value added here is amazing. Kenya has a really good human capital. We've got labor, the ability is far better. The access to capital, I think that's going to be sorted out soon. Today we saw the interest rates also coming down by 0.5%. I think banks need to really own up and open up. But apart from that, I think there's nothing stopping us from really making this big thrust to Big Four. It is achievable. I think it's going to be changing all the rules and really rewrite all the rules and laws. Because I think a lot of impediments. On drinks, you got excise duty. What for? Excise duty was supposed to be a sin tax, for alcohol or for cigarettes. Why are you putting that on all water? So I think there's a lot more that can be changed. We can do it, and I think Kenyans have it. I think the minister needs to be far more bolder in terms of getting this thrust, but then you'd probably need all the other CSs with you in a mission team.
Thank you very much, Vimal. Mr. Simon Chelgo is the Cabinet Secretary in charge of water and sanitation. Amidst all the discussion on manufacturing, there comes the issue of sustainability and how do we actually do good business? From where you sit and just looking towards what is your call to manufacturers, especially in just ensuring they can actually even have an impact on the environment?
Thank you very much. As the Ministry of Water, we see ourselves as facilitators or enablers of the manufacturing industry. And since this pronouncement by the President and having set ourselves the Big Four objectives, we are rallying all our resources towards supporting the manufacturing. For example, in Nairobi, we know these manufacturers cannot succeed without water. So we have now coming up with a number of dams, storing water, transforming our institutions, National Water Corporation to National Water Storage and Harvesting Authority. And what we are going to do, I know the government has been strained with resources, but we are being innovative by coming up with other alternative financing arrangements, because these water structures are very expensive and sometimes it takes a lot of time. And I know this country has mapped itself. They have identified manufacturing centers from Mombasa, Nairobi, Athi River, Thika, and even Naivasha. And for us now, for example, Naivasha, we are now carrying out designs for new water supply structures in River Malewa and also in Kichabe, in Kiambu and Murang'a. We are about to start construction of the biggest dams in Kenya. That is Maragua, Gatei, Karimenu, and even Collector Tunnel. This will increase water supply in the eastern sides of the Kariobangi light industries, the Athi River industries. And for this, we believe that we are going to play a big role in supporting our big four, particularly the manufacturing sector.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon Chelugui, who's the Cabinet Secretary in charge of water and sanitation. I want to move on now to the students. I'm told lined up to ask a question to a panel is Njeru and Stephen Mbugua, first of all, who's a businessman. Mr. Stephen Mbugua, let's hear from him. And a question to the panel, please. And Njeru from University of Nairobi and Grayson Murara, please get yourselves a microphone as we get, of course, to the tail end of this discussion. I'm going to come back to my expert panel on stage, because really at the end of it all, we want to get from your side, what is the way forward and how can we really use this sector to actually grow and move at it? Allow me to just ask, I'm told we have the mic to Mr. Stephen Mbugua, please, over to you.
Okay, my name is Stephen Mbugua. I'm a businessman in Nairobi, in both ICT, industrial estates, and I serve at the Kenya Nation Chamber of Commerce as the membership committee chairman, and I work across the whole country.
Allow me to say your question, please, kindly. Your question to the panel, please.
No, I'm asking the CS and the PS to kindly put attention to the SMSCs, the small micro enterprises and the SMEs across the entire country. Number one, capacity building. Please bring it to our people, including the ones who are very educated. They cannot do a business plan, feasibility study to get access to money in a bank. Kindly assist in capacity building. Number two.
Thank you, Mr. Mbugua. Allow me to just leave it at that so we can pass it on to the students also lined up, because I'm going to come back and I think issues on actually SMEs, Shiro, please take on to that, because we want you to actually represent the entire team of small-scale manufacturers that are in the room. Njeru, over to you.
Okay, my name is Njeru Moses, doing Bachelor of Chemistry. Bachelor of Science Chemistry. My first question is regarding quality production of services and quality delivery of, quality delivery of product. There's this thing, it's called IOS, International Organization of System. It's a requirement whereby if you finish your course, you're supposed to have, it's only offered in human resource development. When you go there, the charges per course, even you're doing just a mere certificate, it's very expensive. So my question is, what have you done to, for example, in the university, we don't have that course. You can only do it online. So if we go to the industry, we absorbed, we don't have that international requirement, and we are gauging ourselves with international.
Thank you, thank you. I think your prof is looking at you keenly. I hope you don't attend class there. So Professor Bitangindemo will answer that. And last but not least, I think Grayson Mora, please, your question.
Okay. My name is Grayson Mara. My question is about the political environment. We know that for the manufacturing industry to thrive and survive in this country, the political environment must be stable. What are you doing as manufacturers to ensure that we have a good political environment, and like what we saw in 2017 that affected you directly? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And right on to it. Professor Bitangindemo, I think the issue on that from the student is really to how can they be competitive out there, even as you give the closing remark. Please respond to that.
ISO standards actually are done by several organizations in this country, I think through KBA, Kenya Bureau of Standards, not through the normal curriculum at the university. I don't know whether I'm wrong or anybody who understands.
You're right.
ISO. Right. Yes, they are offered through. Actually, the question is for the minister.
All right, and not to put too much pressure to the minister. I don't know if Madam Betty Minor, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but we can have to Chiro. Over to you, the SMEs. Of course, that question, especially to the businessman there, has been, how do you support us as SMEs as you give your closing remarks?
I really just want each of you to imagine from when you wake up in the morning, everything you touch that is man-made, from your toothbrush to the toilet you sit on, to the tap you turn to open, where is it made? If each of us ask ourselves that question every single day, to the chair you sit on in your office, dear government, to the car you drive, to the phone you're using, who made it? Why aren't you enabling us? I mean, we don't know how, but teach us how, equip us. We can learn. So please allow the SME sector to grow. Give us reliable power. It's okay, we can work in the mud for now. But the opportunities are huge. We know we're building affordable housing. Who's going to make the doors and the windows, honestly? We actually need this stuff built here, and it can be done by Kenyans and by SMEs. And please, government, stop calling us Juakali. We are SMEs, we are cottage industries, and we are going to change this country.
Buy local, bid local. Rakesh, over to you for a closing remark. If it's just, what is your call to government? Really, how can this sector scale up?
I think what we talk about, I think I was just doing my calculation that we talk about 1 million job, creating 1 million jobs in this country. Forget about efficiencies and all. If, like, for example, we're talking about finance issues and other issue which we generally face around high cost of operations and some other bureaucratic issues, like, for example, port IDF and cost is more than 12 to 14%. If you go to any other country, it's going to be only 2 to 3%. So we have so many other things which is happening, but in spite of all, let's talk about how to grow. And we just do a calculations because since I representing construction sectors where Kenya is a short of 200,000 houses in this country. If we can build 200,000 houses in the country in every year, in 5 years, we can create 1 million house. Each house give a job of 15 people. So you talk about creating a 1.5 million jobs in next 5 years. Now how to do it is simple. Cut down the VAT by 6% and cut down the interest by 6%. If your cost of interest and cost of VAT bring down to 10% for just 4 years and 5 years, you can say that this Kenya economy can grow by $50 billion in next 4 years. Now there's a call which is taken by everyone. We all stakeholders are there, and again, Kenya has a tremendous opportunity to grow, and we can achieve that because we have a people, we have a capacity, In spite of all difficulties, we are committed. If the growth path is there, I think we're all going to align and we're going to grow in this country.
Thank you very much, Rakesh. Ahmed Radi, your submission, please.
Look, I mean, first of all, it's an amazing opportunity, and I learned a lot from the panelists and from the questions. I have been living here for 5 years. This is a country which is rich in human resources, rich in materials. We have to prioritize and select which of those materials we can convert through industry into a finished product. And we have to make sure that the laws are there to open the entire East Africa market so that Kenya can become the hub. Because a lot of those industries that we spoke about, Shiru spoke about them, they need a market. And maybe at the beginning, the Kenyan market, because also we said they have to be born big at scale so that they're competitive globally. So we have to make sure that the market is open. I know there are a lot of laws that enable that, but not a lot of them are in effect. I think we need more help to make sure that they're in effect. We have to focus on what we have: tea, coffee, fruits. What else can be made locally here, right? Printing spare parts. I mean, this can be amazing if we become the suppliers for the entire region out of Kenya. I believe, from what I've seen for the last 5 years, we have a very skilled workforce. And I'll tell you why I believe they're skilled. Skills become obsolete very quickly. But the Kenyan mentality has the ability to learn continuously. And that's the most important skill.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed. Phyllis, I stand because you represent everyone in the audience. What, in your view, will be the way forward?
I think we've had a good conversation. One of the key things we need to do is to formalize the informal sector. We have 5.8 million businesses operating in the informal sector, meaning they're operating outside government taxation, regulation, and protection. And in the process, what happens is that the formal businesses are constantly being burdened with additional taxation. So as the budget speech is coming up, we are all anxiously waiting to see what additional area will be hit when we have only 2.5 million taxpayers. So I think we need to really look at formalizing the informal sector, reducing the burden of regulation on manufacturers, and just making it easy and good to do business. We must embrace in Industry 4.0. That's an opportunity we can't run away from, and really take advantage of the economies of scale, the innovation, and the impact it would have in industry, because that's critical. So for me, closing remarks, we need a step change if we're going to change the manufacturing sector, and we must do things differently this time around.
Great. Doing things differently. Aidan, you have a representation who are right here, and you have your people after in government. Can we take this and have a policy directive from yourself in government, and maybe perhaps come back and say, courtesy of the Nation Leadership Forum, we had 1, 2, 3.
Well, when I was in the private sector, I used to speak like these people. So until I crossed over the other side, and I realized it's easier said than done. But on a more serious note, first of all, as I said, this opportunity is wonderful in that it gives us, the policymakers, an opportunity to hear what is hurting, where things can be made differently. Even with the 3D printing opportunity, General Motors will not come and make those things here today. We have tried it. Because of just a whole raft of other issues that they argue. Any sort of incentives that we can give, we will be happy to give, as long as it touches on many buttons that we try to do. In government, what I realized is, you know, unlike the private sector where you look at shareholder returns and a lot of other things, there are issues of sustainability, issues of inclusive growth that you want to see, issues of, you know, on the environment and what needs to happen. And that is why, for example, if you want to look for higher GDP, you look for the large companies and you invest in them, and policies should be supporting those companies. But if you want a much more inclusive growth that touches the lives of many people, then SMEs become extremely relevant. And it is not by accident that the government has probably a number of, financial related entities geared towards supporting small scale industries. Kenya Industrial Estate, Women Fund, Youth Fund, Uwezo Fund, Industrial Development Bank. We may have issues of actually managing those as smoothly as we would like them, but we are trying to see how we can consolidate that to make a difference in the lives of people. And there are people in this room who are beneficiaries of some of those policy directions that the government needs to do. I think we have, as I said, suffered immensely from long time of not doing things right. The 5 years we've crossed has been good enough for us to do some of the heavy building blocks. Where we are now is the time for, I think, a takeoff for us to actually achieve bigger price. We've got the US market, we've got the EU market. This coming week, the president is going to Kigali to be able to sign the Africa Continental Free Trade, where the whole of Africa is going to be one market. You can sell to Nigeria as you would to South Africa. We are growing outside of East Africa. There are a few things that we have done well. There are a few others where we have had some serious shortcomings.
Yes.
And I think the shortcomings which we should own up, for example, issues like illicit trade, people not paying taxes, those are all committed by our people. When we try and take some tough actions, I think the society...
Thank you very much, sir.
So I could talk on and on.
Yes.
I think there's a lot. I haven't got to the policies yet, but maybe I should just stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all our panelists. A round of applause, please, to them. Panelists, to you, the audience. Thank you very much. It's amazing how time really flies, and really having this discussion to really continue. Thank you to also all our partners. I should rightfully mention also Jackson Mushirambui, who's the Managing Director of Tata Chemicals. Thanks to you, the audience, and of course of you at home who've been tuning in to us coming from home. We've been coming to you live from the University of Nairobi, of course, being the 4th edition of the National Leadership Show. We'll be back again on this stage, this university, this auditorium, with me, Laban Khalifa, with a lot more discussions regarding where this country is headed in the different sectors of the economy. Have a good night.